In the course of this brief history of the United States, we will provide you with 6 fun facts about the United States starting now. Did you know that the American flag has had 27 versions so far? Yes, the American flag has had 27 different versions. The first flag had 13 stars and 13 stripes representing the first 13 colonies of the United States. The United States of America is located in the continent of North America. North America has been inhabited by mankind for at least 25,000 years. Mongolian hunters and the Indian tribes crossed into what is now known as Alaska. Over the centuries, some of these hunters and tribes made their way down the Pacific coast to various locations including California, Oregon and Washington, and eventually to the east across the continent. Between 500 BC and 500 AD, the Hopi and Zuni tribes settled in farming communities now called New Mexico and Arizona. The European arrival in North America. On October 11, 1492, Christopher Columbus, a Genoese captain acting for the Spanish monarch, caught sight of an island in what is now known as the Bahamas, just 380 miles from today's Miami Beach. Although founded by the Spanish, the English began to explore this area seriously in 1607. They established their first settlement at Jamestown, Virginia, where they began growing tobacco. The British brought hundreds of thousands of Africans, during slave trade, to work on cotton and tobacco plantations. By 1763, Britain had gained control of territory in America up to the Mississippi River following victory over France in the Seven-Year War. America War of Independence. The Americans in the 13 colonies formed the independent states that defeated the British in the American Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783. This victory birthed the Constitution that formed the United States of America, the first liberal democracy. The American Revolution was led by George Washington, one of the founding fathers. The Americans fought against the British. On the 4th of July 1776, different colonies of the United States declared their independence from Britain, and was endorsed by the Congress. In 1781, these rebel states of the United States formed loose confederation after defeating the British at the Battle of Yorktown. Although the British still tried at various instances to wage war to overcome the newly declared independent nation known as the United Colonies, in 1783, Britain finally accepted the loss of the colonies by virtue of the Treaty of Paris. This acceptance led to the Founding Fathers drafting a new constitution for the United States in 1787. This new constitution did not, however, come into effect until 1788. In 1789, George Washington was elected as the first President of the United States of America. Now is time for another fun fact about the United States. Did you know that George Washington had very little experience commanding a large, conventional military force when he was appointed commander of the Continental Army in 1775? I bet you did not. However, that did not deter his leadership, presence and fortitude that kept the Continental Army as a formidable force that secured the victory at Yorktown in 1781. In 1803, France sold 530 million acres of territory in North America to the United States in a deal popularly known as the Louisiana Purchase. This sale greatly expanded the territory now owned by the United States. The United States continued to expand as it acquired vast tracts of Mexican territory including California, New Mexico, Texas, Colorado, Nevada, Utah and Arizona under the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo on February 2, 1848 at the end of the Mexican-American War. It is time for another fun fact about the United States. Did you know that the United States is one of only 3 nations in the world that still has a right to bear arms in their constitution? The only other two countries are Mexico and Guatemala. American Civil War. The American Civil War started on April 12, 1861 when the Confederate Army fired on Fort Sumter in South Carolina's Charleston Harbor. The Civil War lasted for 4 years, leaving at least 620,000 Americans dead and hundreds of thousands wounded. The conflict arose out of the increasingly different ways of life, that is, the industrialized society of the North, and the slave-propelled agricultural economy of the South. This was one of the bloodiest wars ever fought on the American soil. Abraham Lincoln was the president at this time. In 1863, about 2 years into the war, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation demanding all slaves be set free in the United States. By 1865, slavery was totally abolished under the 13th Amendment, one of many reasons that brought an end to the American Civil War. In the same year, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and by 1898, the United States expanded its territory by annexing Hawaii. World War I. In 1914, when World War I started, the United States maintained a policy of neutrality. However, America joined the war after a series of events to help allies, Britain and France, fight against Germany. World War I marked the end of the old European order, and the beginning of an era that is dominated by other forces, unveiling the rise of America as a global power. The mobilization of the United States economy, and the sacrifice of millions of Americans helped bring an end to the war in 1919, and laid the foundation for the emergence of the United States as a world superpower later in the 20th century. Time for another fun fact. Did you know that the United States has no official language? Yes. This is sometimes difficult to believe since majority of Americans speak English. Not even Spanish is considered an official language. The Founding Fathers did not see the need for one. English was already widely spoken at the time of Confederation, and there was no need for any protection or declaration of the language as the only form of communication or expression. The Great Depression. The stock market crash of 1929, the subsequent numerous bank failures, the Smoot-Hawley tariff on imported goods, and the missteps of the Federal Reserve when addressing the market crash of 1929 all contributed to the cataclysmic event popularly known as the Great Depression. More than 13 million out of a population about 121 million Americans at this time lost their jobs. World War II. The United States joined World War II earlier on because there was an attack on the U.S. at the inception of the war. In 1941, Japanese warplanes attacked U.S. fleet at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, leading to the U.S. joining the war against the Axis powers made up of Germany, Italy and Japan. In 1945, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The severe blow to Japan caused them to surrender, bringing an end to the war. Cold War. The end of World War II left the remaining superpowers, the US and the Soviet Union, jousting for dominance at the global stage. The US enunciated the policy of containment which was first trumpeted by George F. Kennan in 1947. The policy stated that communism needed to be contained and isolated, or else it would spread to neighboring countries. Hence, the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union. The US and the Soviet Union were fighting an ideological war through their allies. The US did not engage directly with the Soviet Union but armed and enabled its allies to combat the forces and allies of the Soviet Union in every way possible. The Cold War lasted for over 4 decades, and came to an end at the disintegration of the Soviet Union, and the independence of new states out of the Soviet Union. It is important to note that a lot more events occurred during the history of the United States between the Second World War and the end of the Cold War. However, because of the limited time we have to keep you entertained and informed, we will allow you to read up on these subjects at your own time. We suggest reading up on the civil rights era and the assassination of civil rights leaders including Martin Luther King in 1968, the lunar landing in 1969, the assassination of President Kennedy in 1963, the Vietnam War in the 1960s and early 1970s, the Korean War in the early 1950s and the Watergate scandal involving Richard Nixon in the 1970s. Time for another fun fact. Did you know that the United States has the most number of guns owned by citizens of a nation in the world? Yes, this is true. There are approximately 400 million guns in the United States today. The population of the United States is approximately 331 million as of the last census in 2020. This means that there is an approximate ratio of 1.2 guns per person in the US today. Global assertiveness. After World War II, the US remained on the global stage to promote Western democracy and anti-terrorism campaigns in order to promote world peace. The United States, like other powerful nations, has had its own share of controversies, scandals, missteps, negative press and even harm done to other people and nations in a bid to stay at the top or promote the interest of the United States. For example, between 1981 and 1986, senior U.S. administration officials under Ronald Reagan secretly facilitated the sale of arms to the Iran Khomeini government. The funds generated from these arms sale was used to illegally fund Contra rebels in Nicaragua in 1986. In 2013, it was disclosed that the NSA, the U.S. National Security Agency, was secretly mining phone and internet data of U.S. citizens, other foreign nationals, presidents, diplomats, nations, friends, allies and foes. Despite these scandals, the United States has bounced back, and remains the most powerful and prosperous nation that has ever existed in the history of mankind. Our last fun fact. Did you know that the United States has the highest number of billionaires in the world? At last count, there are 724 billionaires in the United States. Attack on the World Trade Center. In 2001, under the tenure of President George W. Bush, an horrific event occurred. 2 of 4 hijacked planes were crashed into the World Trade Center in Manhattan, New York. A third plane was crashed into the Pentagon, while the fourth plane that was headed for another federal building in Washington, D.C. crashed in Somerset City, Pennsylvania, killing all passengers and hijackers on board. This event instigated a «war on terror» that continued till the next decade and resulted in the elimination of Osama bin Laden, who was regarded as the leader and mastermind behind the terror organization that orchestrated the September 11, 2001 attack on the United States. In November 2008, the United States nominated Senator Barack Obama as the first black president of the United States, which was exactly 44 years after the Civil Rights Acts of 1964, and 143 years after slavery was abolished in the United States. The United States is considered the greatest and most powerful nation on earth and has come a very long way since it was founded on July 4, 1776. Although there are still a lot of steps and actions the U.S. can take to achieve the greatness befitting a nation of its caliber, the U.S. remains the beacon of democracy to the world and will keep serving in a large capacity as a leader that all other countries look unto for direction and support during times of difficulty. Thanks for watching our brief history of the United States until the end. As a token of our appreciation, we are including one more fun fact about the United States for your viewing pleasure. Did you know that the United States has the largest number of immigrant population in the world? It has approximately 44.9 million people who are foreign-born. With this many foreign-born individuals living in the United States, new ideas, religions, foods, cultures, music, clothing, knowledge and stories are constantly being introduced to the nation, making it a very dynamic nation and culture that will continue to grow and prosper in the future. Please comment, like, subscribe, share and provide your feedback to our channel. And do not hesitate to reach out to us on other topics and histories you would like for us to cover on our channel. Thank you for watching.